Good afternoon, Tokies. We're here for our week 1, third episode podcast of the Toke Pod. Your hosts today are Nick and Ryan.
What's up,
Dennis
guys?
couldn't make it for personal reasons. Had to play with some cardboard children's toys. Usually buys are around the week 6, 7, 8 and on time frame, and it's kind of weird taking an early buy this early in the season. Any thoughts on to that? The podcast host missing a week 3 or week 1, third episode.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the dedication, you can see where it is, where it lies, who it lies with. Some of us are working for a championship, others, just kind of dicking around doing their own thing. But, here we are, just the two of us, so probably go a little smoother.
And for those of you that are listening, you don't know what it's like to host podcasts. You have to pour a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of heart goes into this, and maybe Dennis needs to take a page out of our playbook, and that you got to lay it all on the table. But for this episode, we're gonna go over the week 1 recap. A lot of good games, a lot of close ones, some crazy finishes. We have a week 1 tie. We're gonna start here going over some of the studs performers of week 1, and I'll start us off by saying all the top receivers, early drafted receivers, had a day. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Jamar Chase, Michael Pittman, AJ Brown, all with over 20 points. Nick, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of names in there that we kind of expected. The big one, Devontae Adams, I think was kind of on the fence. I think his ADP dropped a little bit going into the season. He was everywhere out there. He looked great. No real step back, even with Derek Carr as the quarterback. And then the other two being Michael Pittman and AJ Brown were kind of question marks. AJ Brown looked great. Wasn't a huge passing day for them, but AJ Brown was kind of everywhere. And then Michael Pittman, I think, kind of moving in from last year. You're seeing just kind of continue what he finished last year with, and also just benefiting from having Matt Ryan. Although they did tie, which is kind of pathetic.
That it was. But yeah, it just feels good when you draft a receiver early in the first or second round, and they all just pop off week 1. It's a good feeling. But now into another stud, Jalen Hurts finished with 24.7 points, and he didn't have any passing touchdowns. Really, the bulk of those points were 90 yards rushing and 1 TD rushing. And so I'd say that's a pretty stud performance. No passing touchdowns, still finishing with almost 25 points. I think what that proved is as long as he stays healthy, he will be a threat on the ground. And that could add a lot of fantasy value. I mean, he could have had himself a day if he just had a few passing touchdowns go in. I think 2 passes were stopped right at the 1 yard line, which could have added to a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, I think this pod was pretty high on him. All the reasons you said, the running quarterback has changed the dynamic of fantasy football at that position. You don't need to do everything with your arm and everything, and obviously the points accumulate a lot faster with rushing touchdowns and rushing yards. So he looked great. Should continue as long as he stays healthy, and it was a great pickup real late by you in our Toker's Lounge draft. So you got 2 good options with Tom Brady and Jalen Hurts, but that's the dynamic of the running quarterback.
Yeah, it's nice having a dual threat quarterback, especially for fantasy. But another quarterback that had a day, which we all expected, he was drafted, one of the first quarterbacks to go, is Patrick Mahomes. Had almost 34 points, 5 passing touchdowns. I think the main takeaway is the only question mark that we had with him is how will the offense look without Tyreek? But we can say officially, no Tyreek, no problem. He had himself a day.
Yeah, no, definitely. You hit it right on the head, and I think that he was getting overshadowed, and definitely a big statement game. Next on the list that we had to talk about was Swift. Is another kind of, I feel like almost a similar like as a Devontae Adams, maybe a little bit less proven, but he was high up on the ADP. People were I think some people were a little worried about using a high draft pick on him, but he looked great. Looked like a monster. A touchdown, bunch of touches, a lot of yards, 144 yards rushing, 31 receiving, so a lot of all-purpose yards. But we did Did note the Jamal Williams kind of vultured 2 touchdowns from him, and kind of the question bringing up is this going to be a season long problem with him? Is it going to be something where Jamal Williams is going to be continually getting more and more time in the share if the production stays, and what are we going to be looking at for Swift?
Yeah, I have Swift in our league, so I'm really happy that he produced all those yards. I mean, he looked like a beast out there. I am a little bit worried with the timeshare with Jamal Williams if he gets more playing time, but he definitely had a stud performance. Great week 1. He's a little bit banged up on the injury report, but your boy picked up Jamal Williams on the waiver wire just in case, so I may be all right, all things considered.
Yeah, I think that's a good pickup, especially with Swift being hurt, and then just having if he goes down, I think Jamal Williams will be a big player there. So good grab and a good handcuff if the Swift can't go this week. The other thing, just the last guy we had on here was Geno Smith. I don't think he has much fantasy value here, but he did look good. Played under the spotlight in the Monday night game and brought his team to an unexpected win. I think everyone, we were all high on the Broncos and pretty low on the Seattle, but they look good. They moved the ball. He moved the ball well, and I think the big takeaway here is this, with how well he looked and how the decisions he made. Was he able to? Is that going to be able to elevate the stock that we've had kind of stock down on DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Rashad Penny, Noah Fant, these guys who are position players that kind of, at least on this podcast, we kind of had viewed a little bit lower. And will his play, and Geno, if he continues to play, are we looking at stock up for those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think all overall it was an encouraging sign. The Seahawks, we all, like Nick said, we were all super down on. They came out, they looked good, they were moving the ball, not making dumb decisions. I don't know, I can't remember if they had any turnovers from the quarterback side. I don't believe so, but it just looked like a serviceable offense to have some guys behind. So I was super low on all the star players on the Seahawks, but after seeing that, it's a little bit encouraging. So we'll look to see what happens in week 2. But if they play like that, it could be stock up for sure. So now we're going to move into the duds of week 1, and boy, were there a few of them. To start, the Toke Pod, we called it from the first episode from draft day. Elijah Mitchell. It's just, he is Mr. Glass. He is a broken man. He couldn't even make it through one complete game, first game of the season. Nick called it out. He was his, three-gasm, fake-gasm of the week, and boy, was he right. I thought maybe with Trey Lance that taking some of the workload off of him, he could survive, but he couldn't even make it through one day.
Yep, 100% called it. I forget who it was in the example Dennis put, but he said, I think Elijah Mitchell is kind of not going to be anybody's fake, but I do think he is, and it shows the guy's glass, like you said. And it was inclement weather. It was a monsoon out there, but if you can't stay on the field, you're useless in fantasy football, and that is something that Elijah Mitchell has continued to prove.
Yeah, when he plays, he's good. That's for sure. But he couldn't even make it to a game 1 healthy. So yes, he is now certified glass. Ship him out to the China shop.
Speaking of me being right, number 2 on our list, Allen Robinson. We had liver Dennis segment. You guys both went Allen Robinson and Dennis and Stev. I went Jalen Waddle and Liv. And Jalen Waddle, touchdown, had a decent day against the Patriots. Allen Robinson, 1 target, 0 catches, 0 points.
I mean, that being said, if we could go back in time, if I knew that Waddle had the Waddle dance after a touchdown, I may be rooting for that because I want to see that all year. But yeah, Allen Robinson, terrible day. Really struggled, couldn't get open. We thought that with Cooper Kupp maybe getting, after his monster season last year, getting a little bit more attention, Allen Robinson would finally, with a quarterback, would be able to showcase his talent and kind of get separation, but that did not happen. And maybe it'll just take time for them to kind of get a connection, but week one, absolute dud. And along with that, for quarterbacks, Matt Stafford, also a dud. Only 9.8 points, had, a handful of interceptions, just didn't look good out there. I know he had a rough offseason with injuries to his elbow, whatnot. I do think they're going to get it turned around, but definitely a bad start for all those Dixie that started them.
Yeah, completely agree. So next guy we had on our list, Mike Williams, guy I had last year, 2 receptions, 10 yards, 2 points. Kind of an underwhelming day for him. Someone who was drafted, I think, 4th round, right around where they had him as ADP. You got him with a great young quarterback and Justin Herbert. Playing alongside Keenan Allen. So there's other weapons there that the defense has to worry about, and he just didn't show. Something I saw last year, he has massive big play potential. He's a big imposing wide receiver, but sometimes he just throws up these duds that they're super frustrating. I do like to see. I do think we'll see him bounce back, but it's just frustrating as an owner in fantasy to have a guy like this where you feel like he's a lock. You can't afford not to play him just because he can easily throw up 20, 30, 40-point games at will. But you kind of lock him in and you can't justify not playing him. But then you see a game like this and it's just frustrating.
Yeah, no need to touch on him anymore. He's just one of those guys. You take the highs and you take the lows. You play him every week, and whatever you get, you get. And when he booms, you're happy. When he busts, you hope you can get the win with the other players.
Yep.
Another dud here is Kyle Pitts. 2 receptions, 19 yards. That's all he did all day. Maybe another case with growing pains with the new quarterback, but they seem like they wanted to run the ball. With Mariota, with Cordell Patterson, he just had an off day for a tight end that was drafted, 3rd overall for tight ends, depending on the league.
Yeah, I just think Kyle Pitts is too much of a physical freak. He's a very big body. He's very fast. I think he's just too good not to be getting the looks. I feel like he's their number one option in their passing attack, so I think that'll come around. But like you said, the growing pains, so we'll see. He also in his rookie year last year, I remember he did get off to a slow start, and then he really started to pile it on. So maybe more of that this year.
Yeah, and opposite of the top receivers, the duds of this week were the first, second round running back, the top running backs. I mean, Najee, Derrick Henry, McCaffrey, Eckler, Cook, some of them had 13 or so points, but a lot of them were under 10. So yeah, it's a bad start for your potential top 5 picks. If you go running backs, all having kind of a dud day compared to their counterparts, the first, second round receivers having a hell of a day.
Yeah, there's some injuries mixed in there that kind of were either sustained during week 1 or in Kamara's case, I guess he'd been dealing with it. I think they kind of kept those on a little hush-hush on their wraps. Kamara just didn't get the reps. Najee obviously got hurt in game, but he sounds like he kind of escaped some of that. Derrick Henry's one of those guys. I feel like, you just don't really have to worry. As long as he's on the field, it's going to happen. He's a big play guy, and it's going to come. And then McCaffrey, obviously coming off his injury, I think that's going to be kind of an eased in there. But he'll always get his. He's just too dynamic of a player as long as he's on the field.
Yeah, nothing really to worry about overall with their performance, but it's just always discouraging when a week 1 to have your top 1-2 picks kind of throwing an goose egg out there.
Yeah, especially if you went in, you saw the running backs, you didn't see a lot of depth, and you grabbed your running back, and then you see all these other guys, people like yourself who drafted Justin Jefferson, just putting up monster numbers. So, for you and me, we don't have to worry about that. Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, these guys are perennial just monsters out there in the fantasy world. We went with those studs instead of those running backs.
Yep, no, I fully agree, and I'm happy with that pick. Some other duds, we can kind of touch upon them real quick, but AFC South, yeah, you're all duds. 0 wins, 2 teams played each other. They both tied. Just kind of embarrassing for the division to start off like that. And then we just have Cam Akers, 0 points, big letdown. I would say I was right about that. Called it out in the last 2 episodes. Bad pick, especially where he drafted him. Don't like him. And then Cole Kmet. Which you want to touch upon those at all, Nick?
Yeah, Cole Kmet. I'm still kind of high on him. I think he's gonna. We saw a little bit of it last year. I think he's gonna come through. Obviously, the inclement weather. It was just tough out there. It was a complete monsoon. It was rain everywhere. So the passing game's definitely hurt there. And both teams playing younger quarterbacks, so the passing numbers weren't great there. And then the last thing we had was the Cowboys, just obviously injuries overall, but you see some massive names out there. Dak 5 points, Zeke 5 points, CeeDee Lamb just under 4 points. Schultz kind of leading the way there with almost 10 points, and then Pollard with 3. So Colby, tough look for the team there. Dixie, tough look for the house with Dak. So it's week 1. There's going to be some growing pains. So, those are kind of the main duds that we had. But I see a lot of those guys turning around, but there's definitely some concerns, especially with some of the injuries there.
And that kind of brings us to the next part where it's some notable moments from the week 1 with our matchups. And just kind of jumping ahead here, the battle for Montalona Drive. It was Colby versus her husband Mike. They were playing each other. They have a whole bunch of Cowboys team members, and it was a battle. And Colby was able to squeak out her first fantasy win against her husband. It's poetic. It's just beautiful. I love seeing it.
Yeah, I mean it was a matchup from the gods, week 1, battle for their house. Might be the last win. I think they just accepted an offer on their house, and might be the first and only win at that house this season. So hopefully that pans out well for them with their sale. But I do think, I know we've seen it on a couple bits of mail, but I do think this might be Mike needing to change his name to the OD Port.
Yeah, if people talk about losers penalty, if you come in last, what happens to you? I think that if Colby outplays Dixie, and it's now Michael Davenport, that needs to be the legal name. Come on, Mike, you're progressive. Just get with the times. Additionally, in the same league, we had a really close matchup between Nick and Dennis, the 2 podcast hosts. It all came down to Monday Night Football with the Broncos Seahawks. Dennis had the Broncos kicker. Nick had Jerry Jeudy and Russell Wilson. I think it ended up being like a 6-point difference at the end of the matchup, so super close. But the Broncos had every opportunity to kind of win that game and put it away and get Nick some points, but seemed to drop the ball literally by having 2 fumbles at the goal line.
Yeah, I mean you can't help but try to think that Denver was trying to set home a point to Seattle with the running on the goal line. They chose not to do that in the Super Bowl against our Patriots. We know how that turned out, and I think they just kind of wanted to kind of send a message, but that message was, hey, you probably did the right thing here because these guys just fumbled the ball at the goal line. Cost me a week 1 win. It was the only chance I had at a win this week. I went 0-3, so it's just tough. But I like to bounce back. I don't think Denver's going to struggle long. Russell Wilson's too good of a quarterback, but it was
I
tough
think they
defeat.
look good.
It was a tough defeat to the hands of my co-host who decided not to show up and gloat on the podcast.
He's probably on the Giants party boat right now.
True.
With the boys after their win. In our Tokers Lounge League, we had a 2.7 difference between Tom and Matt. Just a close matchup. That matchup to me went under the radar. I didn't know it ended that close, or was that close until after the week ended. But when that happens, it can set you down, get your mood down when you lose only by 2 points. But just gotta stick with it and turn that ship around for next week.
Yeah, I think anytime this season when Tom gets down, he can just look to his mantle and see that championship trophy. Make him feel a little bit better. He definitely got screwed by the Dak Prescott injury. Not just the injury, but they just didn't look well even when he was in the game. So Nat headed into the Monday Night Football. He just needed, I think it was like 3 points from DK Metcalf, but he decided to make it close himself, only scoring 5, but was able to squeak out that victory. Start out 1-0. He did lose his kicker though, Rodrigo Blankenship. So
Rex Specs. It's a
yeah,
tough loss. Yeah, just one more final notable moment in our Sunbeers League. 3 of the 5 ladies took a W. And only 2 guys got a win that week. So hats off to the ladies. We gave you props to the good draft, and the fact that 3 of you were able to squeak a week 1 win, that's impressive for not having much fantasy football experience. So hats off. Now we're gonna go to a word from our sponsor. Nick, would you like to handle our sponsor today?
yeah. So word from our sponsor, great sponsor. Like again, third week. Just thanks to them and thanks to the sponsors we're able to get in, make this possible. But do you like quarter pounders? Are you always struggling to find a way to carry them around? Then we have a solution for you. Bruce's Bags offers scent and waterproof carrying bags that hold all your paraphernalia in one place. Lifetime warranty, guaranteed to keep your goodies safe on the inside and any wandering eyes on the outside. Comes in multiple sizes and colors. Pick up your bag today. brucesbags.com. Use promo code TOKE for 20% off your first purchase.
And let me tell you, I have one of Bruce's bags, and it couldn't be any more perfect. I was driving fast the other day, got pulled over, and I was a little bit worried what was inside my Bruce's bag. I'm known to be the resident turtle in these parts of town, where I just hand over everything. But you wiped the sweat off my brow. The cop didn't say anything. He did not find my burger. Let me just tell you that. The scent proof, it works. So now we're going to go into next segment, Flash or Fizzle, where it's going to talk about some performances of week 1, and if we think that it will be sustainable or they will fizzle off that performance. So Nick, I'll just start with Carson Wentz, 30 points. I mean, great first game for him with his new team. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of who Carson Wentz is. You see flashes of greatness, going back from his college days and his days at the Eagles when he was, I think like an MVP candidate. He can be really good, and then all of a sudden you see he gets out of the gate, and then he starts throwing some picks, some turnovers on his team, and then he kind of fades away. But he did look good. I think he has a lot of weapons over there in Washington. I know Jahad Dotson, his new addition. Antonio Gibson looked a lot better than he did last year, and what's his name?
McLaurin?
Drawing a blank on Terry McLaurin. Thank you. It's just some good weapons. So if he can stay out of his own way, and just get those guys the ball, the playmakers the ball, and let them do their thing, I think we'll see him. I don't think quite sustain a 30-point game. I don't think that's something we're going to see. I don't think he's at that level of Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, but I do think he could be a serviceable option in the fantasy world, for this year.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not going to say much more, but I think he could be. I think he's more on the fizzle side off that than sustaining that, but it's definitely a serviceable option. But I think in the weeks to come, we see the Carson Wentz we all know and love, and he will start to make some dumb decisions and probably fizzle off that. Next, we have Corduroy Patterson. I never could say his name right.
Cordero?
Yeah. 21 points, 120 yards rushing, a touchdown against the Saints. I mean, I'm surprised. Last 4 games of 2021, he had like under 10 points. He's 31 years old. I thought that people would start to hone in on him as a runner and kind of, as I did towards the end of last year, and kind of slow him down. But and maybe he's just good. I hate to admit it, but I'm gonna go Team Fizzle on this. I think it was one again a bad defense with the Saints. Two, I think it was the first time we've really seen Mariota as quarterback and what that looks like, and then how that impacts the rushing game as a whole. And so I do think he falls off and kind of turns into the pumpkin we saw at the end of last season.
Yeah, I'm a little higher than him. I think I'm a little bit higher on him. I think Flash. I think he's going to show up. Although he's 31, I think he's a young 31. His beginning part of his career, he was always a very, very freak athlete, very fast, and they could just never really find a way to utilize him. I think the Patriots bringing him in kind of showed what you can move him around, and I think you're going to continue to see that. There's also some injuries in the camp. Damian Williams, one of his backups, was injured. So that's just less competition and more opportunity for him to show what he can do.
Yeah, and then we have another running back, Antonio Gibson. He had 16 points, 58 rushing yards, 72 receiving yards. And like we said, we're a humble pod. We admit when we're wrong. He was my fake orgasm of the week. And he actually performed well. He was used in the passing game, had some decent rushes. And, that 16 points from a guy that was, pretty much benched. All but confirmed to me that he ordered the hit on Robinson. He just needed extra juice to get himself an opportunity. But I don't know. I think I have to double down and still stay Fizzle. I think if he keeps up the receiving yards, he'll be good. I don't think he's the best rusher, but yeah, I think he is Team Fizzle for me.
I agree completely. We got a bad boy of the week, Brian Robinson. They're saying week 4, week 5. I mean, this guy he's a freak. They just keep shrinking the amount of time he's going to be out. We hear he gets shot. We're thinking whole season. Then they say potential week 6. Now they're saying week 5 or 4. They were high on him in the preseason. Everybody loves a redemption story. A guy got shot in the leg. He's about to run over the NFL. He's going to take his spot back. Antonio Gibson has fumbleitis. Guy's a fizzle hard.
Yep, I would agree. We could touch upon Travis Etienne. He only had 6.5 points. He had multiple touchdown drops. He had the looks. He just dropped the ball. If that's a season-long issue, it definitely Team Fizzle, and he could even be benched. But I think he's going to be Team Flash. I think he'll turn it around, and they obviously like him. They're still going to give him touches, and I think he could perform better season wide or next week than he did week 1.
I agree. I'm still high on this guy. He looked good when he had this ball in his hands. James Robinson kind of stole some of his touches and everything, but I think when this guy has the ball in his hand, he's going to be an electric player, and I think it's going to be in the Jaguars' best interest to make sure he's getting the ball in good spots. So flash hard on this guy, and I have him in a couple leagues, so I need it.
Yeah, he's drafted pretty high, so yeah, that's an important flash for him to turn it around. Up next, we have Robbie Anderson, 19 points. He had a big. He only had 102 yards, not only, but out of his 102 yards, he had just a monster 75-yard touchdown reception. I'm going to go Team Fizzle on Robbie. He's going to be the guy that has like the Mike Williams kind of aspect where he will be flash or have the big plays. I'm kind of biased when I say Team Fizzle because I want him to be a Fizzle. I do not want him to be the focus point of the offense. I'm high on DJ Moore. So I'm hoping that, he just has these boomer bust kind of performances. And in some weeks it'll be flash, but I think overall it'll be more towards Fizzle.
I agree. He's a guy you kind of hesitantly throw in the flex because you need to, whether it's injuries or just bad matchups, and then you just clench and hope he has his big flash day. But he's a big play guy. I think he's going to fizzle out for sure. DJ Moore's the guy in Carolina, and it's just going to take a little bit of time. They had a short off season with their ability to kind of bring in Baker. He came in late and then battled for the job. So I think just more and more first team reps, then building a repertoire. I think it's going to be DJ Moore. He's just too big of a talent. Um, Next guy we have on the list is Devin Duvernay. I don't know if I said that right. I'm big fizzle on this guy. I am a big target statistic guy. I like guys who get the looks, even sometimes if it doesn't pan out. He only had 4 targets. He made the most of those 4 targets. He had 4 receptions, 2 of them for touchdowns, only 54 yards. It was a big, touchdown dependent game there, and I don't see him continuing this. I think Bateman's a guy over there, and I think with Lamar with his legs and his ability to create, I don't see this guy panning out. He's also does returns, which is always a big injury red flag for me. So I think Fizzle. I think this is a flash, and I think you might see again like a Robbie Anderson. You might see a couple games like this, but I don't think he's gonna sustain it through the year.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, he had 2 touchdowns. It looked good, but I avoided, any sort of bait, if you will, to kind of pick him up on a waiver. I think, there's a couple of names you said there. You didn't mention Mark Andrews. Lamar loves Mark Andrews. He's one of the best tight ends in the league. He had more of an off day and kind of was overshadowed by some of these other players. But I think season long or even next week or whatnot, Duvernay is going to be more of a fizzle, and you're going to see someone like Mark Andrews in the passing game kind of step it up.
Yep, definitely Mark Andrews there. And then also Baltimore loves those 3 tight end sets where they have Andrews and I forget the other guys' names, but where they're kind of making chaos in the middle. So agree, fizzle.
Yeah, and then we're just going to move into 2 defensive performances. The Dolphins with 22 points against the Patriots. Pittsburgh, 33 points against the reigning Super Bowl contenders, Cincinnati. Start with the Dolphins. I know they played the Patriots, but looking on their performances in the last couple of years, the Dolphins have been trending upwards on a skillful defense. So I'm going to go Team Flash on the Fins. I think they have something. Looks like they have a good culture brewing down there with the new head coach. I think they have some skillful players on both sides of the ball. Granted, they played the Patriots, which it's been known that Dixie and I have taken the under for the Patriots win total, so they did not look good. So maybe that was just an easy matchup. But I'm team Flash for the Dolphins defense.
Yeah, they did look really good. I do agree. I think they're building a pretty good defense down there. I don't love them as just being my start them every week defense. I think they're still kind of matchup dependent. They're going to have to face the Bills twice this season. I don't think the Bills are going to bode well for anybody's defense as far as from a fantasy perspective. They have the Chargers, they have the Vikings, they have the Bengals. Even though we just saw the Bengals, on the flip side on that Pittsburgh game where Pittsburgh had put up some serious fantasy points, but I just don't see those as being fun games for anybody's offense. Or sorry, anybody's defense because of the offense that those teams are capable of kind of pushing out. So I think there's just a lot of games, especially having to play against the Bills twice a year, with still those games to come, that it's a little concerning for me. But I do think that they will have more so where they used to be kind of the Dolphins, the Jets, write them off. I do think there is some flash potential there with matchup depending with that kind of asterisk on there.
And I mean, just a point of to note, in the Tokers Lounge League, we have commented on that the defense and the kicker are now one unit. As well as the Miami offense looked, they did not do great. They did not put up that many points. Obviously, the end of the half on that first down, they had that long touchdown to Waddle. But I think overall, they only put maybe 14 points, because one of the scores was a pick 6 from the defense. So on the kicker side of things, that may factor in as well to make him not want to be a bona fide weekly starter as a unit. In Pittsburgh, I mean the first half was a blowout. I can't believe that game. Cincinnati came back the way they did, but I think Burrow had 5 turnovers. I mean, the Steelers' defense looked great. They were making Burrow uncomfortable, obviously with T.J. Watt there and Fitzpatrick and on the back secondary. They look good, and they obviously put up some points, and they sadly lost T.J. Watt for undisclosed amount of time with a pec injury. But yeah, I picked them up because I had the Patriots, and I'm worried about their offensive and the kicker ass side. So I'm team flash on them. I think even without TJ Watt, they can still kind of put a strong defense together. Maybe the Iron Curtain's back. I'm hoping so. Maybe they won't put up 30 points, but if they can have that kind of performance against the reigning high-powered offense of the Bengals, the reigning Super Bowl contenders, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm Fizzle here. You don't lose T.J. Watt. He's a reigning MVP, defensive player of the year. You don't lose a guy like that and trend in a positive direction. I think his ability to cause problems in double teams and cause problems and allow different defensive sets where you can drop more guys back because T.J. Watt's still able to put a load of pressure on the offensive line and the quarterback. Losing him is massive, and I'm Fizzle. I do like him this week against the Pats. Pats offense looked like trash, and Mac is hurt and now feeling sick, so it's just not looking great for them.
And also we have in the same division we have the Browns. First 1-0 start since 2004. And Nick, what was the song in the top of the Billboard 100 back in 2004?
Lean Back by the Terror Squad. I think we all remember it. We're looking circa 8th grade for a lot of the people in this league, 7th, 8th grade, 2004. So about to head off to the big high school, going to those middle school dances, got Lean Back, bumping on the stereo, line, girls on one side, guys on the other. Just to put it into perspective, how long it's been for the Browns to win their first game. Just
and
crazy
to
me.
Put another thing in perspective, if we go to Liv's Billboard Top 100 in 2014, I think number 1 was Rockabye Baby. So you can see there is a little bit of a generational gap between us and some other reigning members of the league.
It's true that.
But now we're just going to go with another segment here with, I'm thinking I'm back. And we had some players that we were all questionable about, whether it's injuries or how they're going to perform. And there were some great responses. I mean, Nick's boy, his best friend, Saquon Barkley. I mean, that guy had a stellar day. He was all over the place. He looked like Saquon of old, and I'm thinking he's back.
He's definitely back. Talked to him after the game. He's feeling great. He went on the Manning podcast Monday night. I thought about calling in and seeing if I could get some showtime on there, but I figured probably not the best. But he's feeling good. He had some good short yard runs. He broke some off for his big plays like he always does. Scored a touchdown. Trusted him on going for 2 to win the game. Guy put it in the end zone, so he's back big time. Next guy, we have James Robinson. Obviously, he was looking good last year. Tore his Achilles. I think 2 years ago you had him. He was kind of a white horse for you on your team. 19.4 points, 66 yards rushing, and a touchdown. The hype around ETN was massive. James Robinson, they're kind of talking about him maybe not playing first game. He comes in, he puts up some big points, so it's a great value play. And I'm thinking he's back from the injury. He looked great out there.
Yeah, no, he definitely did, and that's definitely encouraging to see someone come back from an Achilles injury, which is always a scary injury to see. We saw Cam Akers come back from it and put up a dud, and James Robinson came back and responded. In addition, Sween's happy with this one. His boy, Michael Thomas, was kind of a no-show in the first half. He was questionable leading going into the week with I think it was a hamstring injury, but he finished the day with 20 points. He had It's 57 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns with 8 targets. So yeah, that's a great sign to get him when he did in the draft and for him to respond that way. So hopefully he can keep that up and it's not just a flash of fizzle kind of topic because he was a no-show in the first half. But if he can put those numbers up, he will be back for sure.
Yeah, no,
And
definitely.
then
I do think one note on Michael Thomas, the Kamara, he didn't play as much. He played a few snaps, so I think it's kind of. It felt like Michael Thomas. He did look good at some of his highlights looked good. I do think the 2 touchdowns kind of carried him to that 20 points. So is it going to be a touchdown dependent thing? Will he kind of eased in? But yeah, good for Sweden. His boy Michael Thomas.
yeah, his both of his boys, Cordell Patterson and Michael Thomas, both had a day. So I don't think I think he might have started 0-2 this week, or no, he won in one league. He's 1-1 in both leagues, but he's definitely happy because he has them. Probably carries them in his pocket because he can't be without him. Now for the final segment of the day, we're gonna go with the bloody head injury report, giving you updates from week 1 and the impact that may have for the weeks to come. First, the big one, we're going to start with Dak. He has a similar injury to what Russell Wilson had to go under the knife. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks. Jerry Jones is basically saying he's not going under on IR and he'll be back sooner rather than later. Who knows what kind of pills and medicine they're shooting him up with. But overall, with no Dak, impact on the Cowboys offense. Are we still starting Cowboys players?
I think it could be stock up for both their running backs. I think both their running backs will have fantasy relevance here. I think they're going to go back to the run, rely on that, and it's going to be a hit to those receivers. But we'll see. It's a huge loss for them. Cooper Rush is not Dak Prescott, so talking about getting other guys, but we'll see.
Yeah, I have Dalton Schultz, the tight end, and I was kind of debating how I wanted to handle it. And I think I just have to kind of let it ride and maybe have a few weeks of minor decrease or major decrease in production and kind of see how it plays out. I mean, Dalton Schultz had some of the highest route running per tight ends week 1. So that's obviously encouraging, but obviously you have a major downgrade with Cooper Rush. So yeah, I think it's stocked down for all of them. They, as Dennis has mentioned in the past, they lost one of their big tackles and offensive linemen, so their running game didn't even look good week 1. But I think it's stocked down for all of them until they can kind of get some sort of mojo back. We touched upon him before, but Elijah Mitchell obviously hurt. He's going to be out he's IR 6 weeks or so, another knee injury. And our first fab waiver wire, we saw Jeff Wilson Jr. go for, I think it was $16?
Yep.
Out of 100. And so really is Jeff Wilson going to be the guy, or are they going to revert back to 2021 and just have it with either Trey Lance or Debo kind of picking up that slack?
I think there's value. I think there's value with Jeff Wilson. I don't think he is going to fill the role that Elijah Mitchell was planning on. So I think he has fantasy relevance there, but I do think we're going to see Trey Lance running the ball. I think we're going to see Debo Samuel falling back into that role, and even Brandon Ayuk, I think, kind of playing a similar role and mixing in and getting kind of some of those handoffs like Debo has in the past. But I do think he's a good pickup, and I think Elijah Mitchell, I think knee problems, and he's just glass. So I think Jeff Wilson is going to be someone who's going to be in starting lineups and will continue to be held on someone's bench even with Mitchell's return.
Yeah, we also had Keenan Allen go out. Keenan Allen says it seems like he's downplaying it. That's not that serious, but he's obviously getting older and tends to be hurt a lot. So how does this impact the Chargers? Is this good for Mike Williams, or is Herbert just going to spread the ball around to, say, Gerald Everett, or there's a couple other names people have talked about, Palmer, I forget the other ones, but is this a good thing for the offense, for other receivers, or maybe a bad thing?
Yeah, I think overall it's going to be a good thing for the other receivers. That's going to be a team that's going to be passing the ball. So they
We'll see. It's they play tonight, Thursday night football, so we'll see how the offense looks. I think it might be one of the highest over unders in recent years. So I'm hoping, for someone like Tom, it works. He drafted Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Yeah, he may have lost the draft position, but now he has Mike Williams that could pop off for him.
Yeah, and the next guy we have is Najee Harris. Went out with a foot injury, didn't return in their overtime victory over the Bengals. Guy that looked pretty good in his rookie year, was high on the draft board this year. I know I have him in one league. Kind of one of those injuries that kind of lingers around, the high ankle sprain, the foot. He's a big-bodied back. So we'll see if it lingers. If it doesn't, he's got, I think, he should have a decent matchup against the Patriots this week. So we'll see what his usage looks like, and how he performs, and if he's able to stay healthy. Because I do think he could have a really good year if he is on the field.
Yeah, and I heard you mention you have in another league. Did you put any stock into picking up the backup? I believe his name is Jalen Warren on the waivers at all this week.
Yes, I did pick him up. I just, it was my first round draft pick. It's a 12-man league, so the depth isn't quite there, and I think Pittsburgh's, especially with their quarterback situation, going to run the ball. So I did go out and grab him. Just in case. I dropped him for Sky. I had Sky Moore. I dropped him. Sky Moore just didn't see the field like I was thinking he might. Looks like the value is going to be there with other Chief guys, so I did grab him just in case.
Yeah, it's probably a smart move because you never know if he goes down. I don't really know much about Warren, but it could be have a larger role if Najee is actually hurt. We also had Chris Godwin. He had a hammy issue. He's definitely out now for a few weeks. And it's sad to see. I think they kind of rushed him back. He just came back from an ACL tear. I don't know why they had to play him as much and focus on him as much as they did week one. And I think when you're recovering from a knee injury, there's always different parts that are delayed in their recovery as well from the downtime. And this was it was questionable going into the game, and this is kind of what the Bucs get. And he will be back, but I think this is really good news for one of the shining stars of the Bucs game, and that's Julio. He was drafted late. Everyone was kind of not sure how he's going to perform, but if you have Tom Brady at the helm, you're probably looking for a good year. So I think it's sad for Chris Godwin, but I think it's great for Julio.
Yep, and of course I'm facing Julio this week in the Tokers Lounge, so that's fun. Um, T. Higgins, he left the game with a concussion, didn't return. He still has not been cleared through concussion protocol. I believe he was doing some light drills, non-contact drills, running around. So I think he's feeling pretty good. But he did get popped pretty good. I don't think it's a non-starter. It's just about getting through that protocol. But I do think Tyler Boyd, stock up. I do think he has a lot of fantasy relevance this week. I think the Bengals bounce back after a tough week one. Joe Burrow moves the ball a little bit more, and I do think Tyler Boyd will be a big part of that game plan if T. Higgins can't go.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if T. Higgins is out, Tyler Boyd is like a must start if you have him. In the games that T. Higgins last year was out, Boyd had I think over 15 points or right around 15 points averaging a game. So that's great news for Boyd if you have him. If T. Higgins is out, I would definitely depending on your roster, I'd fire him up, throw him in the roster spot, and you should be happy with that. We also had Alvin Kamara was a little banged up with a rib issue. I don't think it's anything serious. I think he'll be playing this week, and I wouldn't really worry about it. But it's something to keep an eye on. It's how are they going to deal? Who's going to step up if Kamara's out? Is it going to be Mark Ingram or someone else? Is Taysom Hill going to be the continual vulture of all things of joy for Saints running backs?
Yep, 100%. I've had him in the past. Taysom Hill is a cancer in the side of Alvin Kamara fantasy owners. Hopefully that doesn't continue. It's frustrating. Kamara's a must-start guy if he's playing, but week one was definitely frustrating as he didn't touch the field nearly as much or get the ball. But like I said, he's kind of one of those guys you got to play him if he's playing. He's just too dynamic of a threat to not having your roster.
Yep, no, I would agree. It's unfortunate week one, but you got to play them. With that, Nick, is there anything else you want to add to sum up this week?
Congratulations to the winners out there. I know there's plenty of you. I was not one of them. 3 leagues, 0-3. But congratulations to those who took week one. It's going to be a great Thursday night football tonight with the Chargers and the Chiefs. High-powered offenses, pretty solid defense as well. So for those who didn't have wins, best of luck. And thanks again for listening.
Yep, and after week one, there's always 3 types of people. There are winners, there are losers, and there are Dixies. Not Colby, but Michael Dixie, who has already GG'd the entire season. It's over like it's week 16. So don't be a Mike Dixie. If you had an L, just keep your head down and turn the ship around. And congrats to everyone that is that won week one. I'm proud to say, opposite of my host here, I was 3-0 in my league. So we're gonna keep that train rolling into next week.
Good advice from your co-host. That's what that is.
But I wish all the Tokies out there, all the listeners, good luck on week 2, and we look forward to talking to you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out.